Pope Francis has urged tens of thousands of young people in the Democratic Republic of Congo to work towards a better future and shun corruption in the country, which is plagued by violence in its east. The pontiff will travel to South Sudan on Friday, where he is expected to meet President Salva Kiir and his deputy Riek Machar. It is the first visit by a pope since the mostly Christian South achieved independence back in 2011. NTV's Rose Wangoi has more details.
The 86-year-old pontiff arrived at the stadium in the capital Kinshasa on his Pope mobile, offering blessings to an ecstatic crowd who roared and danced in the stands. Young people started to flock to the 80,000 capacity stadium overnight. Organizers put the size of the crowd at 65,000 on the third day of Pope Francis' visit to Africa's biggest Catholic country. About 60% of the Central African nation of roughly 100 million people are under the age of 20, according to UN figures. Besides the conflict, young people in DRC face persistent unemployment. Addressing the stadium, the Pope urged the crowd to build a better future for their church and their country.
Una persona corrotta è onesta o non è onesta?
You are part of a greater history, one that calls you to take an active role as a builder of communion, a champion of fraternity, an indomitable dreamer of a more united world.
The Pope also asked the crowd to chant no to corruption after him. Later on, the pontiff met with victims of conflict, some of whom had suffered appalling violence. Survivors recounted their stories in front of the pontiff and other religious leaders. Victims spoke of violence and abuse with Pope Francis, offering his blessing during the ceremony and giving a speech during which he slammed the brutal atrocities committed. He said the conflict was being driven by greed and called on combatants to lay down their arms. On Friday morning, the Pope leaves Kinshasa for South Sudan's capital, Juba. Francis has personally invested himself in brokering peace between rival factions there. He's expected to meet with President Salva Kiir and his deputy Riek Machar. The two are in the same government, but it is barely holding the country together. Continued fighting and year-after-year climate disasters are feeding one of Africa's biggest refugee crises. Pope Francis is making a long-awaited peace pilgrimage to conflict-torn South Sudan, but whether his plea for reconciliation is heard by the country's battle-hardened leaders remained an open question.